That's it. No more. Shut up.
Hey there.
Okay,
Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener.
I think I just broke the power
7.
button.
Welcome to the OCGFAM show. We have viewer questions today. We had a nice intro, 6 times, but
Not one of them was nice.
No, they weren't nice. They were clouded
They're about
with
as
our
good as last week's questions.
grumpy. Scott wasn't thrilled with last week's questions because they were about gardening and about using other products, and he gets grumpy about that. We're not going to talk about that right now. We're just going to move on to these questions. We got some good ones. Let's start with Jeff Stewart. Hey, Bob and Scott.
Viewership's probably going to drop after this.
Cultured Biologics has a T-Day feed chart that includes some Nectar inputs. Medusa's Magic, Triton's Trawl, etc. So what they do is they're like saying you can put some of this stuff in to get your... we're going to keep going. Given the discussion about microbe sensitivity to high ppm and nutrient loads, do you recommend not including those on the T-Days? Thank you for the info. Now, I would say there's 2 issues here. 1, do you even recommend that? And 2, do you think that this will affect those, the phosphorus in those will affect the microbes in the spores?
I mean, given that's Triton's Trawl.
Yeah, and so you know,
I mean, so when you look at the numbers on the bottles of Nectar products, those numbers are what the bottle actually is in concentrate, which you're not putting in that in
pouring
concentrate.
it into the water.
Yeah. So I mean, I personally, when I do T-Days, I believe in just doing the microbial piece of T-Days. And that's just mine. It's old school gardening. It's organic farming from back in the day. But with these new fandangled kids who like to do the all-in-ones.
They're eggheads. Nerds.
It's pretty offensive.
Eggheads?
Yeah.
I can't even say eggheads anymore. Okay, go ahead.
No, you can't. So... they want to create these teas that have a nutrient charge to them. They're trying to, keep the balance of food, keeping the plants healthy and strong by consuming all the time while adding the microbials. So with Medusa's Magic and Triton's Trawl at the 1 teaspoon per gallon, you might be at like a 0.06 phosphorus level. Mild phosphates at that, best. So, and very low ppm. So you're not, a lot of people took what we talked about a couple weeks ago as anything with a P is going to destroy all microbial fields. And then, basically it's not necessarily the case.
Right.
The case being high levels of P, high levels of sodium, high levels of, parts per million. So we're talking like 1,200 parts per million feed with microbes added to that feed in the solution could harm the spores.
And we were really only talking about putting the spores in the ground of the mycorrhiza. Not even about
the
these are mixing up in the water, and they're coming to life in the
soil.
Yeah.
And at that level, what I would do is if you wanted to do a charge tea with Medusa, Tritons, whatever, which, again, I like to just brew microbes,
it's not your jam,
food.
but...
If you're doing it this way, then what you do is you start with the water. You start by adding the Medusa and the Triton's Trawl. You let that all blend in. Your parts per million are still going to be under 200 parts per million. Your P is only going to be like 0.02. You're not going to harm anything on that level, so you could still run that without any problem.
Okay.
And run it as a T-Day. It's like I've done 2 feedings. What I'm really trying to do is get the microbes in there to consume the foods that I put in the last 2 feeds. So my T-Days are microbes that I fed something different or molasses in the solution, and then they go in and they eat the stuff out of the soil.
Although they've obviously had good success with what they're doing.
Well, so clearly they've they wrote the recipe for their teas and Nectar and Easy Teas because the owners of that company have run these products together. They generated these products together. I'll go to like General Hydroponics created subculture on the East Coast, and mycorrhiza can't grow in salt, so mycorrhiza can't do it. Well, GH cultured their actual mycorrhiza in their solution so that they made this hardy mycorrhiza that can handle these loads. So, if you're designing things and you've tested it and the lab comes out and everything's alive, then what they're doing isn't wrong. It's just not my cup of tea in the sense of I would just use their microbes and water them in without a food source because there's already food in the soil for them.
Perfectly reasonable. Okay. Edward Brown, along the same thing, I guess we've kind of covered this already, though. He says, sounds like Easy Tea spores would be a waste if doing a feed tea, feed flush. Sounds like the feed after the tea would damage the spores, young microbes, if you are feeding heavy after inoculating with spores, as suggested by the feeding chart. How are you not damaging them? I am disappointed that you did not address this. I did address this. I did answer his question in the questions. So, since the Easy Teas seem to play a major role with the line. Microbes played a major role with the line, I would say. Not necessarily EZT, but what?
All microbes.
Or whatever, Photo Plus.
SLF, Bigfoot, all those. I mean, and that's it. All the microbes play a big part in this. But again, I mean, we're looking at, if you do a slurry number of your soil the 2 days after you did your compost tea and your slurry's at 250, you're not high ppming.
Sure.
And if you're, I can see this makes great sense that if I'm putting mycorrhiza in the 5th week of flowering, I'm in the mid stage of the Roman schedule of feed, you're at 15 to 1600 parts per million. Your bone meal is at 6 tablespoons, so you do have a higher phosphorus level, but you should have already had a colonized mycorrhiza colony at this point. You shouldn't be re-inoculating in the 4th or 5th week with mycorrhiza spores.
Right.
Bacteria spores, these anaerobic bacteria that are living in things like SLF, microbe life, they're hardy. They can handle this load. They're in high solution. So I don't think there's a big problem there. You're not wasting money. And worst case, if the spore doesn't germinate, it's going to feed some other living organism that wants to eat that spore and turn it into a food source regardless. So
I think maybe there's an impression that the day before the tea day, there's no microbial stuff going on in the soil, and you're just pouring in the microbial stuff. There's a field going on here.
All we're doing is creating an equilibrium of life. So we don't want these imbalances of microbial life taking off and having just a bacterial dominant and no fungal, or a fungal dominant no bacteria. You want the ebb and flow of life to continue the cycle of food.
And that's what we're doing with our microbial inoculant. Okay.
You can get away with no microbes. Running just nectar, feed, water, feed, flush, feed, water, you do just fine. But you'll get a lot more out of it if you're adding the microbials. If you damage some in the, cold air will damage some, hot air will damage some, copper damages some, iron, they're all sensitive. So if you just keep throwing the buffet at them, some are going to take.
Okay. There you go.
And the low ppms. I mean, there's not that high.
It's not that much stuff. No. This is a lot different than maybe if you were in some sort of hydroponic thing with synthetics.
I think that's really the focus is that if you're running a 0.52.0 high phosphorus bloom food, that's damaging. Yeah. That's damaging to spores. I mean, that's 52%. That's like 1,200 parts per million of phosphorus.
Just phosphorus.
I mean, when you do 900 parts per million of Medusa, that's NPK, CA, MG, MBO,
whole thing.
That's a gamut of nutrients creating 900 parts per million, not phosphorus. So, we've done a lot of labs and seen a lot of microscopic post feedings to find massive life in the soil.
Okay.
Big problem. So
we've covered it.
Well, we didn't. We blanketed it.
Threw a blanket over it.
We're just not going to set it on fire.
Okay. Josh S. says, I heard you mention leaching out heavy metals. Now, this I think he's talking about in relation to using Full-On.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that and the final taste? Well, maybe not necessarily about Full-On, but Full-On is, I think, where we were talking about that subject.
Well, and what we were discussing there is Rob, one of the owners there, and the company itself, talking about their ionically charged minerals that are pulling the opposite charged metals out of the plant. Plants love heavy metals. There's just if you use plants as fertilizer, you're using heavy metals because the plants that you're using as a fertilizer also loved metals when they were pulling them out of the soil. So when you're looking at alfalfa and soy and all these products, they're pulling metals out of the soil because that's what plants want.
Okay.
Now, what they have is an ionically charged material that when it's in the root zone, it can literally pull out the metals out of the plant from a flush standpoint. Now, I would reach out to them to get the actual ionic charge, how the science works for them. But I do know from everybody that I've partaked with their product on a finishing with their Full-On, it's smoother. The terpene profiles are just more well-rounded.
Elegant, delicate.
It's like wine in an oak barrel that was burnt for Tuesday to Wednesday.
I got you. It's not. It's more mellow a little bit to where it's more complex.
More complex, and I think for people who are, there are some hypersensitivities. There's autoimmune disorders. There's a lot of patients that really have to have super clean medicine. This would be Full-On is one of those products that can kind of help facilitate a cleaner medicine, even with, and I've seen it with some of our synthetic farmers locally in our retail stores, is they're getting a cleaner finished product with less heavy metals in the lab tests from when they're doing the lab results, and that ultimately is going to be better for the human consumption. Plants, again, they love metals. Very rarely you like consuming a bunch of aluminum because you consume flour grown with, an NPK nutrient, but it's just nothing I really have too much concern about.
Okay.
I don't know. Call Rob. Here's his number.
Ring, the phone starts ringing. It's like, what the What's going on? It's 4 in the morning.
Must be a video out.
Lurking Line 703, Lurking Line 703. The name's so nice, he said it twice. Have I done that joke before?
No, but you should probably stop saying it now.
Any idea why he isn't a fan of Turpinator? He being you. It has no. This is like a comment down, 3 comments down, and a thing about someone talking about Turpinator. So just to get that clear, it has no PGRs and is pH neutral. I was asking because I just wanted to finish my bottles for my last grow. I didn't want to throw them out or to have them just sit here collecting dust and expire on me. Stuff costs money. But if the beard says don't use those bottles with his line, I won't. Just want to know the best, and I would like to push my plants until the plants tell me to back off some. Turpinator.
I have no ill will towards Turpinator. I don't use it personally.
Just not your gig.
Well, no, I just don't feel it's needed. And from the customers that do use it or have used it, that are diehards, so a lot of them come back saying, I don't need it when I'm using this line, or I found this or that. There's nothing wrong with Turpinator. It's not a bad product. It's not a bad company. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just one of those where we don't see necessarily the benefit with our line so much. And
I got you.
If you have it, there's nothing wrong with it. Use it up. There's no question.
Sure.
But always keep experimenting. Always look for the next thing. There's always something. Turpinator just hasn't been our
Would you say
go-to.
That Persephone or something like that would be similar to what they're getting from that? Or would you say that using the whole line of Nectar is what was getting more
calcium.
Yeah.
The calcium products in our line, the Aphrodites, the Persephone, the Herculean, Tritons, and it's the difference of, are you going for visual trichome production, or are you going for internal oil production? There's so many different ways to measure this final product, and what we found from our extraction guys was visually it looked more. Extraction wise, they did not get this much, and so we find that we're producing more oils internally with Aphrodites and products. Now, if you're going for jar appeal, Turpinator crushes it on jar appeal because it makes the trichomes look like their hair. It's incredible.
Well, it occurred to me just now that probably a lot of these additive things that we see, like Turpinator, stuff like that, are geared toward a synthetic nutrient line, because that's a lot of what's out there, and that when you start using them with what we're doing here, that maybe they're not as effective.
I don't even know the whole story. I thought Turpinator was originally kind of worked with Cutting Edge Solutions, in a sense, and then for whatever reason, I know Cutting Edge enough to know that they're a great company. They do good work. I know a lot of people that use Turpinator and speak highly of it. I know a lot of guys that have run it back and forth and are on the fence. So it's whether you just have to, if it's something that's working for you and you love the results and the flavor at the end is what you've been looking for, then Turpinator is an awesome product for you. If it's something where you don't see the difference between this and that, then what's the point of paying more for a product that you don't notice a difference? But it's up to you and the consumer. We all do this thing differently.
Well, and I guess too that a lot of these products were to get asked questions about here. You've heard of it,
but you sell it at the stores.
Used it. You know a little bit of it, but not any idea of how.
I know a lot of my Nectar farmers who use it. Yeah, and there's guys who swear by it, and there's guys who say I've done both, and it really depends on a million factors that you can't quantify. If your air conditioner is at 72, but his is at 78, who knows how your plant's accepting it in? So as far as like PGRs, pH neutral, all the other stuff, Turpinator is a fine product to use. I have no ill will towards them or anything about their products. I personally don't use them, and not because I hate them or anything. It's just I don't need the additional component when I don't see the difference in my garden. You may see a huge difference, and you should keep doing it.
That's what you should do.
But if you got the bottle, you should certainly use it up. There's nothing, you're harming anything. But also, try side-by-sides. Make sure you want to keep it. Make sure you want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Don't get rid of it if... This fucking beard doesn't have a brain. It's just attached to the broken face that is attached to. So don't listen to the beard when it comes to products. You figure it out for yourself in the big scheme. I personally, I stick with Aphrodite's and I pump it up.
Yeah. Okay. Cornelius Hamilton.
Our guy.
Long-time viewer. Great commenter. Good fella. Greetings, fellas.
I wonder if he's Cornelius Pumpernickel.
What?
On Facebook.
That doesn't sound unreasonable.
I wonder.
Hard to say.
I always get these names. I'm like, oh, yeah. I know you buy an Instagram name, but you can say your name's Mike Smith, and I won't remember.
I have no idea who you are.
You're that guy, Cornelius. Spells it differently.
Cornelius,
so.
yeah.
Cornelius.
Hamilton. Which always makes me think of Hammer Time. We're going to move on.
Yeah,
I usually... Now, he had a long, thank you, and was talking, about some different things. But he got down to the bottom and had kind of a question.
Constraints, we fast-forwarded to the next actual action.
Previously on viewer comments. I have a 5-gallon bucket brewing with aerated water. Aerated. It's aerated is the word. Aerated, right? Doesn't matter. With 1 cup of... So this is a recipe, so just stand by, all right? Brewing with aerated water, 1 cup of worm castings and bokashi, brewing with half a cup of molasses and 16 ounces of coconut water for 48 hours. After the first 24 hours, I'll add about 2 ounces of photosynthesis plus, 2 ounces of SLF 100, 2 ounces of full power. After 36 hours of brewing, I'll add Mammoth P at 6 milliliters per gallon, cultured biologics, veg or bloom, I guess depending on the season, at 1 ounce per gallon, Nectar for the Gods tea, parentheses Pegasus and or Morpheus, at about 2 ounces per gallon, and predatory nematodes for diversity and to keep fungus gnats away, at 1 ounce per gallon, and only in flowering right before I add my teas, I will add 2 ounces of Persephone's and 2 ounces of Aphrodite's. Am I maximizing my inputs? Is there anything else you would add or subtract from my process? Thank you guys again. That's a lot of stuff, right? That seems like a lot. But hey,
I mean,
God bless.
Again, does it work? Now, normally, I don't like commenting on people's compost tea recipes only because if it's working for you, great.
Yeah.
However, there's a few products like... So basically, if you buy a microbe in a bottle...
Yeah.
It's
anaerobic. A microbe in a bottle, yeah.
Well, it's anaerobic.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, yeah.
So you're brewing an aerobic tea. When you add anaerobics to an aerobic tea, you just added more food source for the aerobic to live on. Because once you start oxygenating, these guys don't want to be there. These other aerobic bacteria will out-colonize and populate and will consume them.
Okay.
So to save money, what I would almost do is do an aerated tea on your feed aerated tea.
Okay.
And then a feed anaerobic tea. Your anaerobic would be your... Basically, it would be your SLF, your Mammoth, your photosynthesis plus. Yeah. To those, I would be more comfortable because they're anaerobic, they're high concentration. You could add in the Morpheus, the Persephone, or the Pegasus, those nutrients to that. But honestly, I would just stick with taking those nutrients out of there. I mean, I don't mind the Aphrodite... Persephone an hour before the water's in.
I gotcha.
So that it wouldn't hurt. But again, the tea days are really to make 1 million microbes to go into the soil to consume all the nutrients that we've been putting in there throughout the whole growth cycle. But to put in the Mammoth P and the
these are right at the end he's putting in. You might just do those on another day.
This is 24 hours in, and it goes for 48 hours. So for 24 hours, these are food sources.
No. After 36 hours of brewing, I'll add the Mammoth P and the cultured biologics.
Yeah, but they still has 12 hours to die.
Oh,
they're anaerobic, meaning they don't want oxygen.
No, yeah.
So they thrive in denser states.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would do my aerated teas... And throw in your cultured in there. Those are all going to be aerobic bacteria and fungus. Yeah, it's a tough one. Because everything, your castings, your bokashi, so you got your housing in your food. You got the molasses as a food source for the bacteria.
Now, a lot of people would use a
So that's 4.
Or, well, not humus. What do you call it?
Alaskan humus?
Yeah, or some kind of peat or something, no?
Compost.
Compost,
well,
yeah.
You shouldn't use peat.
Not
That's
peat, no.
dumb, but
humus.
Alaskan humus.
Yeah,
like
okay.
topsoil from well, same thing. It's a compost, a microbial compost.
Yeah, okay.
So use booze blend or whatever. Phone dead.
It doesn't work.
No.
All right. So did we answer the question?
I don't know. He'll have to ask us if we answered
Well, let's talk more about it. So get back at us, and then we'll chat.
But separate your microbes. Keep anaerobic one day, keep aerobic the other. It's just you're defeating you're still getting something. But basically it's a really expensive food source for the aerobic.
I got you.
Because the aerobics are going to just keep taking off, and the anaerobics are going to die off because of the high oxygen load. So separate those. Anything that you're getting that's a microbe in a bottle, stick with just adding those and watering them as a microbe day. I call it my super easy tea days and my easy tea.
Yeah.
That's called easy for a reason. Because you just mix it, water it, and you don't have to brew it. I do love brewing teas because I think I get a way more diverse, more rich colony, and it's very affordable to brew.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get mass diversity in your colonies in an aerobic tea all the time. So doing an aerobic tea with castings and a compost is going to get you, arbitrary number, 50 different type of microbes here. Then you go to the next one, which is SLF, mammoth, and microbe life. There's a different level of microbes that are going to add to the diversity, but they're going to go in as anaerobic.
So you might go back and forth, or maybe do your brewed tea,
or throw those microbes in on the feeds. I throw SLF in everything. I'll throw photosynthesis plus on everything. Mammoth peas designed to be fed with nutrients. Okay. So I would almost add those in on your feed days and keep the aerobic tea on its own day. And then just back off on the nutrition load that you're giving them of bottled nutrients, just because you've already fed them so many times in a row.
Yeah.
That by just adding more food to it, it's fine. We love you. You're just going to buy more products from us, but you could save that food day for an actual feed day.
And some of that food is just going to go away on your flush day because it's just been locked up in there, maybe, or is it? No. It's just too much.
Well, it's not even too much. It may not be benefiting you.
It's getting chewed up by the microbes instead of... I guess I'm trying to understand.
Well, I think what a lot of these guys want to do is they don't want to skip a feed. They want to keep this growth going. They want to keep the energy in the plant. So by giving them the microbes, they feel like they're not giving them the food source to keep growing.
Oh.
But the microbes literally will go in and find the food source at the watering and make those available. So you're not missing a feeding. If your parts per million are 150... and you're doing a tea and you add those foods, that's a good idea because you have no food in the soil. If your slurry's 450, there's no point in adding more food to your compost teas. Because they're already fed. We can go in there and consume the foods that are already there, and then the plants can absorb that through digestion. Microbial digestion.
Okay. This was a great show.
It really wasn't, but...
It was a workmanlike show.
This is going to probably have more hate comments than ever.
I don't know. People aren't really hateful anymore. But
I think we may have lit that fire again, where it's like, you know what? Let's find hate. Let's do another show. This might be the one that sets people over the edge and they want us all dead.
Well, if they do, that's just the way it goes, I guess.
Man,
I'll still love you.
This new super soul we're doing is killing it.
What the heck? What? What's going on?
I don't know. I'm waiting for the finals, but talking to guys like Pig and
they're liking the soil.
They're liking the soil. We're working on Porculean harvest now. Yep. And he literally, so we made Medusa with Porculean, we made Gaia with Porculean, and Herc with Porculean. So we've got a new, and this is all for Europe and Canada. Porculean might stick around because...
So you might actually even use it here. It's looking good.
He's...
blown away.
Yeah, he thinks that... Well, he got a truckload of soil that is our normal soil, but our pumice has been coming in frozen and wet because it's from Chemult.
Oh, okay.
So it's on the, up in the high Cascade, so it's pumice. It comes out of the volcano. It's got snow on it, so we get him some block of ice. We try to warm it up, can't. We're also cold and wet. It's all stored and covered, but a block of ice and
it's a block of ice. It's like when you put a roast in the refrigerator. It stays frozen
for a while.
Yeah.
We started making potting soil for Pig, and the moisture content's probably about 25%, which is about 10% higher than we like. But it's the time of the year that you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But that moisture content got all the mycorrhiza and the bacteria and everything going and colonizing. And so right off the bat, he's like, holy bejesus.
It's working from day one.
Yeah.
It's gassed
dialed.
up.
And now his flower production, his terpene production, everything that he's seen, he keeps sending me pictures going, I think this is probably the best grow I've ever done.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
Yeah. And he's excited. He's like, man, I'm excited about growing again. And this is a guy who loves gardening.
Do you think he'd ever do viewer questions? He's a pretty quiet guy.
Huh?
He's a pretty quiet guy.
He's a private guy.
Yeah.
So
maybe not.
He might hate everybody.
I've got enough love for him and you to give back.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that your love is down deep. You're somewhat rough on the surface. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, that's protection.
Yes.
I keep my walls high and thick.
That's good. You have to when you're in the big chair. But me, I'm like that guy on the back of Mr. Magoo on the back of the plane. It's the only way to fly.
Mr. Magoo.
Mr. Magoo.
You just referenced yourself as Mr. Magoo.
Well, you got to know yourself. Knowing yourself is the key to being happy. That and being present, I guess.
And being present?
Being present in the moment. Being present in the moment. Not being thinking about stuff down the road. Being right where you are.
What about worrying about yesterday?
Well, don't worry about yesterday.
Why, though? It's gone. Can't bring it back. Can't undo it. It's done.
That's what I'm saying. You need to be present. I'm working both sides of the argument now, just in case.
Of course. America.
Yeah. So, that's the show.
That was the show. Sorry.
We'll do better next time.
Maybe.
Better questions could help. And not better questions, but nectar questions.
Steered questions.
Nectar questions.
Yeah. We're going to start going away from promoting other people's products that we don't use or sell or about. So I hate to say it, but when you ask about products that can be used, let's just put it this way: if it's an organic meal from any brand, they're all the same roughly. You can use that in the soil and use nectar.
Well, that's where I wanted to go with the rest of the show with the tent grow too. Is that I think there's more gains to be made from dialing in our nectar than from figuring out what tea we should use or what this we should do or what that we should do on the peripheries of it. So I'm hoping we can kind of dig into that stuff. I may have some questions too.
I think that's it. I mean, we'll start bringing some internet questions to the game and just some more of the common questions, and maybe we'll even do a couple how-tos right here on the table, like another slurry test or...
See, that's the thing is the slurry test, I think we could do more with that of showing people how that... You can never do too much of that.
No. I think a lot of the simple, systematic things that we do on the regular are things that people really, it's a style. It's just showing somebody else a different style. And I think the more they can learn from that, or they share their styles with us. I mean, feel free to show us a video of how you do it. If it's super awesome or you think it's super helpful. And believe me, I learn something every day from my customers. So I do not know everything. I barely know 10% of anything. So. I love learning from these people. I've learned 90% of what I know because I ask the right questions to the right people. Bring me your info. We love to talk about what you're doing.
See? We pulled it out at the end.
Still nothing.
That's the show. For more information about anything on today's show, go to our website, OCGFAM.com. And if you buy anything while you're there, use the code FAM20. It's going to save you 20%, and it's a lot of fun. The OCG Fam Show. It's pretty good. It happens every day. It's the OCG Fam Show. See you on Monday.